to Shawty's World. So I think I'm on for Vlogmas. I think I'm on like a every other day schedule. And here I am, and I got a full cup of coffee. So yeah. So in this video, I'm going to talk about my nursing school journey. So I won't go into too great of detail because I also vlogged my journey through nursing school on my YouTube channel. Also watch those videos there, but this is just a short synopsis, and it's a part 1 because part 2 will be about my bachelor's journey and being a working nurse, mom, and all that jazz. So, which I could probably do that video now, but I just feel like this is a synopsis. So, and also before I get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also hit the thumbs up if you like this video or this content, and I will continue to talk more about nursing school or nursing, just nursing in general. So here we go. I went to a public school initially right out of high school. It was a pretty popular university where I live, and I went there. I was young. I was 17, and I don't know. Like, I took school serious, but not really serious. Like I took it serious, but I was still young. I wasn't mature. I don't feel like, and no, I was mature, but how can I say this? Let's just say I wasn't ready at the time. I didn't understand the magnification of being in college and what all it would require of me. Okay, so I was there for roughly around about 3 years, and I got to the point when I was there that I was like, okay, I've been here for 3 years. I have all my prereqs done. I had to take a chemistry class, which I took the first one. It was like a chemistry 101 class. Then I had to take like an organic chemistry class, which the organic chemistry class, I did not do good. And I even had a tutor. And I took the first chemistry class twice, 2 or 3 times. Because I always did good until like the midway point of the quarter. And then that second half of the quarter, like, I didn't do well. So whatever. Anyways, 3rd time's a charm. I believe I took it 3 times, and I got a really good grade the last time I took it. So then I went on to 102, struggled with that. There was a lot of, talk about the molecular structure of different things, and I was like lost. At that point, I was like, you know what? Maybe nursing just is not what I'm supposed to do. Like, maybe I should change my major just so I can graduate school, which I was going to change it to psychology. Actually, I technically did change it. And then, my mom was like, you better march your little butt back in there and change it back to nursing. I'm like, what? This is my life. Anyways, changed it back to nursing. And then I started looking at other options. And so I was looking at LPN schools, I was looking at 2-year schools, and I found a small 2-year college that it would take me 2 years to get through the program when I got accepted, and I would get an associate's degree. So I applied. It was a private school, and I ended up getting admitted to the school, but not the program initially. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go there, and then I'll do my prereqs, and then apply again to the nursing program, and then that way all I have left to do is like my nursing courses, and that's what I did. The culture was just different. Like, it was a Christian focus, it was a Christian school, and so there was chapels, there was devotions before classes started. It was just a lot. It was different, just totally different. But what was a shock to me was how the students were different. So like, prior to going to the previous school, like, I didn't really have a study habit. Like, I mean, in high school, you just, you know the material, you don't. You fake it till you make it, or, you study with flashcards or whatever you do. But in college, it's a little different. So, like, when I got to this smallish university, or the smallish college, like, everybody was, like, really, like, intensely studying. Like, they after the college closed, because I stayed in the dorms my first year, and like you still had access to the college because it was connected to a hospital, and so you could like walk to the cafeteria like to get, that was our like meal plan and how we could swipe our badge to eat and stuff. And so you still had access to like the main areas of the college, and so there would be like study groups downstairs. I mean, and, you know, people will be sitting in like the open area where their tables and couches and all that stuff, you know, with their laptops and, you know, their headphones on, and everybody wasn't in the same program. So like it motivated me differently because it's like everybody was just focused on what they came to school to do. You know, there was not a lot of like extra stuff going on. I mean, people still went out and stuff like that, but like it wasn't a major part of the school's culture. So nevertheless, I, you know, after going through some of the classes, I took a lot of like religious classes, but then I also had to take like A&P, and that's when I started like realizing like, okay, I have to figure out how to study. So what I ended up doing is, I don't know how I came across this, but there was a A&P coloring book, and so it had different little structures like cells and things like that. And we had a lab where there was a cadaver, and we had to identify like organs and all that stuff. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up finding this A&P book. That's how I learned to memorize the different parts of the body and different things that I had to know for A&P. I did really well in A&P, by the way. So yes, and so that was that. Well, then I applied to nursing school and I got in, so I was really excited about that. And so then my first nursing course, that's kind of like when we got introduced into the nursing school tests, because nursing school tests are not like, at least not in the program that I went to, are not like any other test that you take in college. Most of the time you can study for your test, right? And when you get your test, it reflects what you study. Like, it's literally about reading the questions, picking out the answer that you study for. Nursing school testing was completely different. It was like, okay, like here's what you studied, here is the questions. And the questions, yeah, they're related, but all the answers could be right, but there's only one correct answer, or there's only one correct answer for the situation that's presented to you. And you're like, but they're all right, but you got to choose the right one for the situation, like what order or whatever. So that was a new way of studying. I had to learn how to study the information and then use that information to apply it to a situation, not necessarily use it to, I'm not necessarily learning the content to answer questions about the specific content. I'm learning how to apply it to a patient scenario. So it's completely different. And once you realize that sooner than later, depending on how like your program tests, the better off you'll be. So I'm going through nursing school. Everything's going great. I met my husband. We got married July of 2010. And then we got married July 2010. We went on a honeymoon. I was also at the time pregnant. Went on a honeymoon in August. And when we came back is when we lost our first child. So I went through that. And I actually, when I found that out, I took, I want to say 2 weeks. I think a week. It might have been a week. I took a week out of school, which really honestly wasn't enough time, but I knew that one, time waited for nobody, and two, I knew this was something that I really wanted to do. I didn't want to let what happened to me like stop me from obtaining my degree. I decided to then, I went back to school, and I had some awesome classmates who took notes for me, invited me to study groups and things like that, like so I can get caught up. And the next year, 2011, I found out I was pregnant again, and so from that point onward, I did okay. First part of pregnancy, school ended. It wasn't until I want to say August that I got put on bed rest. So I had to, at that point, I couldn't, because they were putting me on bed rest for like 6 weeks. And so I had to go on a leave from school and reapply again for the winter semester. So that put me back like a year, well, semester to graduate. The thing I had to do, I had my oldest, which is MJ, and then after that I became like a new mom and also in nursing school. So the monumental moment for me was I was in my second to last semester, and I was like, you know, everything was going okay, but I had my first test, and I took my test, and to pass you had to have a certain like grade, like percentage, and I had a percentage below that, just 1% below passing. And the instructor told me that if I kept this up, that I was not going to pass her class. And I was like, excuse me? Like, no, 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 no. I was like, oh no. Like, I'm not going to accept that. I don't believe that. So what I ended up doing is I went home, decided, okay, I had to think how I was going to do this. Like, how am I going to make this information stick? So it brought me back to how my thinking was transformed when I first started at this new school. So I decided that I was going to take my notes. I'm going to take the information as the content. And then I was going to make questions over my notes. And then that was going to be my knowledge base. That was going to be my baseline knowledge. And then from there, I would apply that knowledge to the questions, or not to the questions that I was asked, the scenarios, the situations, the test questions. And honestly, after I came up with that study method, for me, it worked. Like, if you look at one of my other videos, I'll tag my playlist from nursing school, and around that time in nursing school, you always, not in nursing school, just in life in general, like you always have to be flexible enough to do what is needed. Like you have to be able to say, okay, this worked, so I can keep doing this. And then if something happens or if the situation changes, then you have to be willing to revamp and, you know, go back to the drawing board, trial out different things to make sure it works. So I figured that out, and I ended up, every test after that, I did very well. Like all of my, actually from that point onward, I did really well. So I was really proud of myself because one, I proved it wrong, and two, because my method worked. Like to come into that college, I didn't have a study method. I didn't know how to study and how to make information stick. And I knew how to study for tests, but of course, when you study, the problem with studying for tests is that you don't retain it. Like you don't know it for the long term. Like you just learn it to pass the test and that's it. And that's what I was doing. And that wasn't going to work in nursing school. So I had to figure out what was going to work for me. I just had to figure out how to study. And watching other people, other degree programs, watching them study and seeing their dedication and seeing what they were doing helped me figure out what I needed to do. So after revamping my study habits, I did graduate. I did pass my NCLEX on the first try with 75 questions. But a lot of people, so I attended this review course, and a lot of people shouldn't really get caught up on the fact that you pass with a minimal amount of questions, because I feel like when you're taking a test, like as soon as you go one question over 75, you're like, oh my God, I failed, and that might not necessarily be the case. Don't get caught up on, oh my God, my test kept going after 75. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're failing. You have to retake this test or whatever. And I feel like your thought process during, especially taking NCLEX, has to be one that is positive, because if you give up right after you hit 76 questions, then you're going to be defeated. You might do worse from that point forward when you were originally doing good. So, and I'm not saying that if you get all the questions that you didn't pass or that you did, I'm just saying that just take your test. The test that I took when I took it, which was 8 years ago, it's an adaptive test. So like, therefore, like if you did well on this question, they'll give you more questions like that, or they'll give you something more challenging. And it goes based off, like the questions goes based off of you and how you are answering the questions. So I took this review class, and he said, so it shuts off at 75 because either you did enough to prove that you were a competent entry-level nurse, or you did so horrible that it was like, you're not doing too well, so we're just going to cut it off at 75. He says you were doing so well that you went all the way through, and they just had to keep challenging you because you were doing so good. I don't want to talk too much about NCLEX because it has been 8 years and I'm not like in any way an NCLEX expert or a part of that whole advisory board, all that jazz. So nevertheless, I passed it and I got my first nursing job. So that is my shortened version of my ADN nursing school journey. Stay tuned for part 2 where I talk about my BSN journey, where I attempted to do my BSN about a year after I graduated, and then how I took a long hiatus and came back to it. So if you like this video, again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, like this video, and hit the notification bell, because although I'm trying my best to stay on target with Vlogmas, it's kind of difficult some days because I don't have a lot that I do right now. So nevertheless, I will talk to you guys later.